In Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis beautifully illustrates our need for God, saying, "God made us. He invented us, just as a man invents an engine. A car is designed to run on gasoline, and it won't function properly on anything else. Similarly, God designed the human soul to run on himself. He is the fuel our spirits are meant to burn, the food they are meant to consume. There is no alternative." Lewis reminds us that true happiness and peace cannot be found apart from God, because they simply don't exist without him. God is intimately aware of your every tear, your quiet prayers, and the pain you hold inside. Even in your darkest and loneliest moments, he stands by your side, ready to offer strength and comfort. Life's challenges can feel overwhelming, leaving us drained and weary. Yet Jesus extends a life-changing invitation in Matthew 11:28. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." When the weight of the world feels unbearable and confusion takes hold, this promise is a beacon of hope. Lewis also reminds us that reliance on God is not a one-time act, but a daily renewal, a fresh surrender to his will. It's in these moments of trust that we discover a profound truth. God sees your struggles, hears your cries, and is working in ways you may not yet understand. His plans are always good, his timing always perfect. The Bible reassures us of God's faithfulness. Lamentations 3:25-26 declares, "The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." And in 1 John 3:20, we are comforted. Even when our hearts condemn us, God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Today, I want to explore essential biblical teachings about waiting on God. One of the most challenging aspects of being a Christian is the patience required as we wait for God's answers. As C.S. Lewis notes, "I am sure that God keeps no one waiting unless he sees that it is good for him to wait." Every Christian endures periods of waiting, where it seems nothing is changing. While it's natural to question why God delays, remember that his timing is flawless. As Isaiah 46:10 says, "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times. Trust in his order and precision. What is still to come? I say my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please." He calls a bird of prey from the east, a man for his purpose from a distant land. This theme is repeated multiple times in the Bible. One of the most daunting challenges in life is waiting, especially when it comes to waiting on God. Many of us can relate to this feeling. You have poured out your soul in prayer and wondered, "God, why is it taking so long? Are you listening to me?" In those moments when you feel forgotten or question whether God cares, it's important to hold on to the promises found in Scripture. You might be praying for relief from chronic pain, for a loved one's heart to change, or for guidance in finding a stable job, healing from emotional wounds, restoring broken relationships, or finding a life partner. Jeremiah 33:3 offers reassurance, saying, "Call to me, and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." Waiting for answers can be incredibly challenging, especially when it seems like your prayers go unanswered. Yet, patience is a virtue that nurtures our faith. The more fervently you pray, the more it may feel as though there is no response. But remember, God's timing is perfect, even when it seems delayed. Trust that he hears you, and that his plans for you are good, even if the path to fulfillment is longer than you hoped. You cling to faith and believe with all your heart, but there is no clear sign from God, no indication that he has heard you, no evidence that he is working. All you long for is a sign, any sign. "Lord, show me something, anything," and yet sometimes there is nothing but silence. So what is God doing in these moments? Why does he seem so quiet? Remember the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. Joseph waited years, enduring betrayal by his brothers, slavery and imprisonment. Even through the toughest trials, God remains with us, orchestrating every detail of our lives. In Genesis 50:20, Joseph reassures his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph's journey illustrates that God's timing is perfect, even when it's not clear to us. You may feel like you're stuck in a pit or a prison, waiting for deliverance, but remember, just because God seems silent doesn't mean He isn't present. He is working behind the scenes, with His goodness, power, provision, and grace constantly at work for your benefit, driven by His deep love for you. As a loving Father, God has wonderful plans for you and desires to see you flourish. Today, we will explore key principles about waiting patiently on God, opening our hearts and minds to embrace these truths. One principle is that God's delays are not His denials. C.S. Lewis notes in Mere Christianity, "I am sure that God keeps no one waiting unless He sees that it is good for him to wait." Receiving what we ask for might lead to something better or something entirely different than expected. What we often perceive as a delay is merely the first step towards the right direction. In a world that prizes instant results, waiting can seem like a waste of time, but it is in these moments that God is shaping us for greater purposes. We live in a dynamic, fast-paced society where we demand quick outcomes from technology. Because our time is precious, waiting seems counterproductive, as if we are missing opportunities. This period of waiting can trigger anxiety and doubt. We may start to question if something is wrong, because waiting contradicts our culture of instant gratification. It is challenging to wait when uncertainty looms over us. When we are unsure of the outcome, doubt creeps in, and we begin to question if God will come through for us. As doubt takes root, the temptation to take control increases. But here lies the danger. When we try to control things ourselves during the waiting period, things can go very wrong. Scriptures warn us that trying to manage situations on our own can lead to complications. We see this in Proverbs 3, 5, 6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own. Understanding in all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight." However, when we are waiting for what seems like an eternity, when our prayers seem unanswered and time continues to pass, we are tempted to take control. Perhaps you are at this point of desperation. Today you have waited, prayed and trusted, but nothing seems to change. Doubt whispers, "What if?" And before you know it, you are tempted to abandon God, to leave your faith because He did not meet your expectations. But let me ask this: how long does God have before you decide to leave Him? How long before you end your relationship with Him because He did not deliver on your terms? Remember, God operates on His own timeline, not ours. So in the midst of waiting, resist the temptation to take control. Trust in God's perfect timing, even when it seems like time is running out. Keep your faith, hold on to hope, and trust that God is always at work, even during periods of waiting. Reflect on the story of Lazarus in John 11. Mary and Martha sent a message to Jesus, informing him that their brother Lazarus was gravely ill, expecting him to come and heal him. However, Jesus delayed his visit, resulting in Lazarus's death. When Jesus finally arrived, Mary and Martha were mourning and questioned why he had not come sooner. Yet, Jesus demonstrated that God's delays are not denials. He performed a miraculous resurrection, showcasing His power over death and His ability to bring about unimaginable outcomes. Isaiah 55, 8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." This passage highlights that God's understanding and plans are far beyond our own. What might seem like a delay or an unanswered prayer to us is often part of a grander plan that we may not fully grasp. Trust that God's timing is perfect and that He is working all things together for your good, even when you can't see it. My ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. God's perspective surpasses our understanding. He sees the bigger picture and knows what is best for us. So when we encounter delays, let us not lose heart. Instead, let us place our trust in God's wisdom and impeccable timing. Let us have faith that He is orchestrating everything for our benefit, even when it is not visible to us. God's delays are not rejections. They are opportunities for us to strengthen our faith and witness His miraculous power unfolding in our lives. Principle 2. Patience is a virtue, Lewis says. In mere Christianity, the great thing, if one can, is to stop regarding all the unpleasant things as interruptions of one's own or real life. The truth is, of course, that what one calls the interruptions are precisely one's real life. The life that God is sending day by day. What one calls one's real life is a phantom of one's own imagination. This, at least, is what I see at moments of insight. But it's hard to remember it all the time in our lives. There are times when it seems like God is delaying His response to our prayers. We pray passionately for healing, for provision, for breakthroughs, but it seems that God is silent. It is natural to feel disappointed, to question if God has forgotten us, or if our prayers are going unheard. Lewis says in Letters to Malcolm, we must lay before Him what is in us, not what ought to be in us. The prayer preceding all prayers is, may it be the real I who speaks. May it be the real thou that I speak to. We must remember that God's delays are not a sign of His indifference or reluctance to act. Instead, they are opportunities for more significant miracles, for deeper faith, and for His glory to be revealed. Just as Jesus delayed His visit to Lazarus to show His power over death, God's delays in our lives often set the stage for something extraordinary. In a world that values speed and immediate gratification, patience can seem like a forgotten virtue. We are used to fast food, high-speed internet, and instant results. We want things to happen according to our schedule and our plans. However, the reality is that God's timing rarely matches our expectations. Patience is more than just waiting. It is about resilience, persistence, and faith. It is about maintaining hope when situations seem bleak and surrendering our desires to God's perfect plan. The Bible in James 5:7-8 instructs, "Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too, be patient and stand firm because the Lord's coming is near." This is similar to the farmer who waits patiently for the harvest. We are called to wait patiently for the fulfillment of God's promises. Patience is not a passive state. It is an active choice to trust in God's faithfulness. Even when our circumstances are filled with uncertainty, let's face the truth. Patience is challenging. Facing obstacles and unanswered prayers can be incredibly challenging. When it feels like time is slipping away and doubt starts to creep in, the temptation to take control of the situation grows stronger. However, rushing God's timing often leads to frustration and disappointment. Instead, we should embrace patience as a virtue, knowing that it builds resilience and shapes our character. As Romans 5:3-4 says, "Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Trust in God's impeccable timing, as Romans 8:28 promises, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." The waiting period is not a waste of time, but a time of growth, refinement, and preparation for the blessings God has planned for us. In the midst of waiting, cultivate patience, knowing that God is faithful and His promises will be fulfilled in His perfect timing. In the Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis explains that the enemy wants us to focus on our actions rather than on our future, creating anxiety about things beyond our control. He notes, The future is, of all things, the least like eternity. It is the most completely temporal part of time. By directing our minds to focus on what might happen, we become anxious. This anxiety can only be countered with faith in God's timing and His promises. The Scriptures guide us to let patience have its perfect work. Patience is not a passive trait. It is cultivated in the waiting room of life. You may not notice any visible change, but rest assured that significant transformations are happening beneath the surface. Patience exercises your spiritual muscles, making you stronger, helping you grow, evolve, and become more resilient. So do not underestimate the waiting periods, and do not be disheartened if things are not progressing as quickly as you hoped. Remember, the longer it takes, the more blessings God has in store for you. When your time comes, when God knows you are ready, the fruits of your patience will be far greater than you could ever imagine. We all have dreams we're eager to fulfill, challenges we hope to overcome, and the longing to meet the right person. When the waiting period stretches longer than we expected, it's natural to feel discouraged and restless, questioning, when will this finally happen? However, delays are often not due to God's inaction, but because we might not yet be ready for what He has in store. We may feel prepared for our own plans, but if we could see God's vision, we would understand that we need more time to mature, evolve, and gain experience. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah. In Genesis 21, God promised Abraham that he would become the father of many nations. Yet Abraham was 100 years old, and Sarah was 90 when their son Isaac, the fulfillment of God's promise, was born. This delay was not because of a lack of power on God's part, but because it was necessary for Abraham and Sarah to reach a point of complete reliance on God and to experience His timing fully. God's plans often unfold in ways that require us to grow and prepare, ensuring we are ready to receive and handle His blessings when they arrive. Imagine waiting nearly 100 years for a promise, and yet, in God's perfect timing, that promise is fulfilled. In our own lives, we often find ourselves eagerly awaiting God's intervention, praying fervently for breakthroughs, healing, provision, or reconciliation. When it seems like God's timing differs from ours, we may feel impatient, anxious, or doubtful, questioning whether God hears our prayers or if He will act on our behalf. Consider waiting as a period of preparation, refinement, and growth. Just as Abraham and Sarah faced numerous challenges and obstacles during their waiting period, God used that time to mold them into vessels ready for the fulfillment of His promise. So, my dear friends, let us root our hearts in trust, believe that God is faithful to His word and is working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail according to His perfect plan. Wait with anticipation, knowing that when the time is right, God will fulfill what He has promised. As we navigate this season of waiting, cultivate a mindset of gratitude, praise, and worship, recognizing God's goodness, sovereignty, and unwavering love. Proverbs 3:5-6 offers profound truth. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. This verse invites us to surrender our timelines, desires, and understanding to God, placing our absolute trust in His sovereignty, wisdom, and faithfulness. Even when the situation seems bleak, our faith should persist in prayer, even when the answers are delayed, a faith that recognizes that God's ways and timing are superior to ours. His timing is always perfect. Principle 4. Discover tranquility in God's timing. Lewis says in the Screw Tape Letters, "Men are not angered by mere misfortune, but by misfortunes conceived as injuries, and the sense of injury depends on the feeling that a legitimate claim has been denied." The more claims on life that your patient can be induced to make, the more often he will feel injured, and as a result, ill-tempered, for his mind can be directed to the present sphere of humility and quietness. Once he accepts this, he will find tranquility and a sense of peace. Psalm 46:10 instructs us to be still and know that I am God. This verse highlights the importance of calming our hearts and minds, of pausing amid life's hustle to recognize God's presence and supreme dominion. In this stillness, we discover a peace that transcends understanding and guards our hearts against fear and doubt. Finding serenity in God's timing also involves appreciating the journey of waiting. Instead of perceiving waiting as a time of stagnation or frustration, it should be a time of reflection and deepening our connection with God. Finding tranquility in God's timing is a journey of surrendering control and trusting fully. It is about letting go of our need to control outcomes and embracing the certainty that God's timing is impeccable, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. Philippians 4:6-7 offers comforting guidance. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This passage reveals that true peace does not stem from having all the answers or controlling every aspect of our lives. Rather, it arises from surrendering our worries and anxieties to God and finding rest in His supreme dominion. In a world rife with turbulence and unpredictability, it can be challenging to find tranquility in God's timing. We may be tempted to worry, doubt, or take control ourselves. Yet genuine peace comes from releasing our fears and anxieties to God and trusting that He is orchestrating everything for our good. As we wait with patience and anticipation, our faith is strengthened and our hearts are prepared to receive the blessings God has in store for us. Embrace the journey of discovering peace in God's timing. Surrender your worries to Him, trusting that He is in control and that His timing is always perfect. Find comfort in the assurance that while you wait, His peace will guard your heart and mind, drawing you closer to Him. C.S. Lewis illustrates this principle in Mere Christianity with the analogy of a house being renovated. He writes, "Imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what He is doing. He is getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, and so you are not surprised. In the same way, while we may understand some of the changes God is making in our lives, the deeper work He does often goes beyond our immediate comprehension. Trust in His supreme dominion and the process of transformation He is guiding you through. But presently, He starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make sense. What on earth is He up to? The explanation is that He is building quite a different house from the one you thought of, throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were going to be made into a decent little cottage, but He is building a palace. He intends to come and live in it Himself. Proverbs 19:21 clarifies that while a person may have many plans in their mind, it is God's purpose that will prevail. We can devise our own plans, but in the end, it is God's plan that stands. During times of waiting and uncertainty, it's natural to question God's supreme dominion. We may wonder why certain events are unfolding the way they are, or why our prayers seem unanswered. However, in these moments, it's crucial to remember that God's ways and thoughts are infinitely superior to ours. Although we may not always understand His plans, we can trust that He is orchestrating everything for our benefit. Trusting in God's supreme dominion means having faith in His perfect timing and recognizing His authority and control over all things. In a world marked by unpredictability and turbulence, placing our trust in God's sovereignty offers us comfort and strength. Psalm 103:19 reminds us of this truth. The Lord has established His throne in heaven, and His kingdom rules over all. This verse powerfully underscores that God remains in command, even when circumstances seem beyond our control. His plans are superior, His ways grander, and His purposes will ultimately prevail. Trusting in God's supreme dominion involves surrendering our desires, plans, and will to Him. It requires recognizing that He knows what is best for us, even when it isn't immediately apparent. Ecclesiastes 3:11 assures us that He has made everything beautiful in its time. Although God's timing may not align with ours, we can have faith that it is always perfect. Even when we become impatient and weary during the wait, we can trust that God is faithful to His promises and that His timing is precise. So let us place our trust in God's supreme dominion, confident that He controls all things and has a purpose for everything. Let's give our plans and worries to God, trusting that He's working everything out for our good. As Romans 8:28 says, "In all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." So, take a moment to be still and listen. In your heart, you'll hear God saying, "I see your pain and hear your cries. Trust me, and I'll help you through. Hold on, the dawn is coming. Your patience will lead to victory, and your faith will guide you. God knows you're tired, but believes in your strength. Keep going. You're never alone. May you find strength and peace as you face challenges. If this message resonates with you, type "God is always with me" in the comments. I pray that God's blessings be with you. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring content. Remember, God is working behind the scenes. Your struggles won't last forever, and your prayers are heard. Trust that He's planning a future full of hope and joy. God sees your pain and loves you deeply. Hold on to His promises. They are true and eternal.